You are listening to episode 94 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and this week I'm joined by the Next to Nothing podcast with Danica and Mr. Green. Danica, you've heard the episodes. What do we like to talk about in the Game Deflators Podcast?
On the Game Deflators Podcast, we like to talk about games we recently picked up, games we are currently playing, and this week we take on hordes of demons invading from hell in this week's Inflation Deflation Challenge.
Dude, probably one of the best intros we've had. I might have to fire Ryan, get him off the podcast. I mean, he's not here, so he can't speak for himself. I don't know where he's at. He said he's out of town. So, all right, man. So obviously we like to talk about the games that we've recently picked up. So I'll give it a start. You guys can kind of get the flow of this and let us know what you've picked up. So for this week, I actually I had one game pickup, but I had a really interesting pickup as well. I grabbed the Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3 Memory of Heroes book. I thought it was a graphic novel, but it turns out it's just a novel. So I guess I'll be reading that at some point soon to check it out. And I also picked up Ys 8 on the Nintendo Switch. So I've been looking at this game for quite a while. It's obviously part of the Ys game series, and I've got like Ys 7. I've got the one that recently came out on PS4, which is a Vita remake or Vita remaster. I'm looking to get Ys 9, and then I have various Ys games from before the Switch and PS4. And I had to bite the bullet, man. It was like $84. It was not a pleasant pickup in terms of value, but I mean, the game's floating at like 120, 130 on various consoles, and some guy in Canada had it for like 99 Canadian and $9 shipping, which came with like 84 US. So I was like, all right, it's like $30 lower than every other listing. I kind of just have to get it at this point.
Yeah.
So that was my big pickup this week. I'll look to play Ys at some point in the future, but you know how it is, man, with games and a rarity, and, you know, are they going to, release another copy of Ys down the road, number 8? Is it going to come out, in a PS5 version down the road? Who knows? So it's like, let me just pick it up now. The money's gone. 10 years from now, I'm never even going to notice it. All right. So, Danica, did you have any pickups this week, man?
Not really. The only thing I picked up was the iOS port of the game we'll talk about for the Inflation Deflation Challenge. I've been without power and internet for a little bit, so trying to find games and like pickups have been a little strange. I kind of got to the point where I was really diving deep into my hard drive to see what games I had installed. Mm-hmm. And I just returned to Skyrim for the umpteenth time in my life. So that's the only thing I've been able to do.
Jeez, man. Mr. Green, before we get to you, I'm just going to mention that on the episode today, so you had mentioned the pickup, so I'll bring it up now. We actually played Doom this week for the Inflation Deflation Challenge. We all had, I don't know if Mr. Green played it on PC or not, but I played it on Super Nintendo. Danica played it on mobile, and then I hope Mr. Green played it on PC because it'll go really well with some of the articles we're talking about. Those articles today are going to be Epic Games being sued by Coral Castle, and that is by ABG Gaming. We'll have an article on the Xbox Series S performing reportedly at 3.9 teraflops. We'll get into that. And we'll also be talking about mobile versus PC versus console gaming. Which one is better? So a little bit on that, more to come. But for now, Mr. Green, what did you have for your pickups?
I actually picked up several games, actually, but the most recent one I picked up was Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links on Steam. And I ported it over with my phone. I've been playing that every so often. It's pretty well generated from like the phone side to PC. It's just a port, but it's a good time killer. Especially since I've already had stuff like progress on my phone and then able to just link it to a certain account. And then you get to play with friends and stuff like that as well. I've been kicking Danny's ass.
You and your stupid Red Eyes deck.
Man, I haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh! In so long, but I think we mentioned on your episode too, we were talking about some Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it was just like I used to run an old Exodia deck with the Pot of Greed and the Gravediggers and all that stuff to just, pop things out on turn 3 to kill people. It was fantastic. I remember those days pretty well.
Yeah.
Old school Yu-Gi-Oh.
Like going into like the casual matchmaking, I like a couple weeks ago, I finally had the first person play solitaire on me just to summon Exodia. It was like a little ridiculous. I sat there for like 5 minutes on turn 1. This guy had turn 1 and just summoned Exodia right out of his deck. I'm like, thanks for wasting my time, you scrub. That's actually been a game I've been playing a lot like this week because I have cellular data, just not internet after some storms hit my town. So I've been playing a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links this week too.
Jeez. Mr. Green, any other games? You said you had a few.
The other one that I picked up was like Among Us, which I played a little bit of. It's like a deception style game where a few people in your party are trying to sabotage you as a group as a whole, and that one's pretty fun. It's super small, like a super small game. Like you could run that thing on a potato.
Is it kind of one of those visual? Is it one of those like visual novels?
No, it's like like you're like a little astronaut on a spaceship, but it's like a low res. Like it's like a Fall Guys, like the Fall Guys beans, but not as detailed.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So,
that could run on a potato.
yeah. I think the download was only like maybe 3 gigs.
Really?
It's super
wow.
small. I'd have to look at it, but it was small. It took me like 5 minutes to download.
I was gonna say if you were like 20 kilobytes, that could be like, all right, cool, it fits on a floppy disk, but nah. Okay, so before we jump into what we're currently playing, just want to remind folks that you can catch the Game Deflators podcast on thegamedeflators.com, of course, and then the podcast itself on Apple Podcast, iTunes, Podbean, Podcast Addict, anywhere podcasts are found, you can find us there. And of course, social media at the Game Deflators for Facebook and Instagram, and at Game Deflators on Twitter, because they just don't like the word the. Danica, if you want to let us know where folks can find a Next to Nothing podcast.
Yeah, so Next to Nothing, the podcast, can be found live on Twitch on twitch.tv/DaniEcae, DANIECAE. That's live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find us on YouTube under Danny K Media, spelled the exact same way. You can find Next to Nothing also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else podcasts are found.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for that. Of course, look for both podcasts on those applications, and we hope to have some new listeners down the road. Okay, so let's get into some of what we're currently playing. This is, the fun area right now before we jump into those articles and start screwing around. I am currently playing Shadow of Memories on the PlayStation 2 with my wife. So I think, as you guys know, I've talked about it on previous episodes, and I talked about it on your episode when we were on there. My wife and I have at least like one game that we play together on a consistent basis. So one of the games we just beat recently was Ukulele and The Impossible Lair, which that layer was nearly impossible, hence why I beat the nearly impossible layer. And we decided to play Shadow Memories next for some strange ass reason. That's what we decided on. The other game I'm playing right now is Ghost of Tsushima. So I've been playing that for quite a while. I just jumped back into it this week. I'm on the 3rd act of that game, and it's phenomenal. Like, I just cannot get enough of this game. The graphics are great. The overall storyline so far is great. The side quests are great. You find yourself capturing pictures for 20 minutes in a certain area of all the filters that they have. It's incredible. Like, I absolutely love it. And there's a reason it is the highest rated or user rated game on Metacritic this generation. So it's a phenomenal game. You guys have anything that you're currently playing this week outside of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links?
Like I mentioned, Skyrim. I've just been doing this pretty chill Zen playthrough because I've already played Skyrim. I've done almost all the quests at this point. So I just decided, I'm going to load in. I'm just going to go around the map and pick flowers and hunt deer. That's been my playthrough this time around. Just something to, I can waste hours on.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds actually pretty legit. Just kind of sitting back and being like, all right, I'm just going to hunt deer.
Yeah.
Pick flowers. Like, Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually.
I got out of Helgen and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to ignore every other quest. Like I haven't even gone through Bleak Falls Barrows. Um, the mage in Whiterun keeps yelling at me. He's like, I thought you were supposed to be at the Barrows. The Jarl and I are not patient men. Just like, I'm gonna go kill an elk. I'll be back in Whiterun after I kill a couple elk so I can make some armor and sell that.
And you're like, ooh, flowers.
Ooh, flower. Exactly. Yeah, I get in more trouble just by picking flowers than anything else.
Shiny pots and pans in this old lady's house after I pick her garden.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a good time. It's been really chill. I've surprisingly been enjoying it more than I thought, because it was just like an actual desperation thing. I'm like, I'm tired of broadcast television right now. I've cleaned my apartment 5 times. Let me see what's on the hard drive.
So this week on the Game Deflators podcast, we talk about a retired adventurer who picks flowers and kills elk in the world of Skyrim.
Exactly.
Good stuff. Anything else? I mean, you obviously played a little Doom. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
And Duel Links, that's about it for this week.
Yeah, that's been about it.
Sweet. Mr. Green, we got your Duel Links. We got your Among Us that you played a little bit. Anything else that you've got on the docket for the week that you're playing, or maybe something you're looking forward to playing this week?
I am constantly playing FPS games. So my main game so far has been Call of Duty Warzone, which I absolutely hate it. I hate it so much, but it's so fun. I hate it. It's god awful. It's the worst experience, but I'm glutton for punishment.
So what makes it so bad? I mean, I don't play a lot of FPS anymore. Main reason being I'm kind of like you in a sense of I'll get stuck to it and just will not stop playing.
Mm-hmm.
So what's so bad about it?
Well, it's a battle royale game, and it's more of like the balancing of the guns and then the players. So like the map is so large that it really promotes camping, and I'm not much for a camper. Like I like, that's one thing that I very much dislike in a battle royale FPS game. Just because like I've always got to be constantly on the move. Like a lot of people will hide in buildings like for a whole game, and they'll kill you, and you'll be their only kill for that whole match. And I don't understand how that's fun. Definitely not fun for me.
Definitely not fun for you, especially when you see that replay of a sniper hitting you from a building, and that's it. Yeah, I stopped playing Call of Duty a long time ago, and I think it was Modern Warfare 2 was the last one I played. And it was just kind of the same thing, man. I just absolutely hated the camping perspective, and it drove me nuts. That and C4, that was always an issue back then. Blowing up cars and C4 explosives on corners when you walk by. It just pissed me off enough that I'm like, I'm done, no more. Now I'll play the old school type of bot first-person shooters where you're in a round and you've just got bots going around, and I think that's fun, but I don't know of any recent games that have done bots within their FPS.
I know Call of Duty you can. Yeah, you can set it up to where, and they have Spec Ops too, where you and 3 other guys can go in and essentially fight AI and like this story-driven like mini campaign, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the type of thing I like, man. Plus, it gets away from the whole like having to deal with other people on the internet and 12-year-olds telling you they're going to screw your mom. Yeah, straight up like the most toxic environment ever. So I don't miss it in the slightest. Now, Dark Souls Online I could do because I don't have to actually talk to anybody. They just do weird hand things and dances. So it's not too bad. Okay, guys. So let's jump into our articles this week. As we all know, Epic is in the process of suing Apple over the whole thing of Apple taking Epic's Fortnite application off of the Apple App Store. Google did the same thing, but really the battle is kind of focused on Apple and their 30% cut that they like to have on games that are in that store. So a little more background on that. With Apple having that 30% cut, Epic decided we're going to go ahead behind Apple's back, and we are going to devise a way so that we don't have to have a cut taken out of what we get paid in our V-Bucks. So Apple didn't like that, said you broke our TOS and you're kicked off. So that is the backstory on that. And then in comes Coral Castle from Miami-Dade, Florida. And Coral Castle, for anybody that doesn't know, was built in like the 20s and opened up in the 50s or 60s by some guy that decided to make his like kind of own Stonehenge in a way within Florida. And it's the weirdest thing. Like I've seen it going through Florida in the past, and it's definitely an odd sight to see. And so Epic having in their Fortnite game a specific level called Coral Castle, and it kind of looks weird. So I guess Coral Castle's owners said, well, hey, it's called Coral Castle. It looks weird. Our thing looks weird. So we're going to go ahead and create a lawsuit on this. So I'll give my quick opinion here, and then I'll turf it off to you guys. I honestly think this is more of a publicity stunt from Coral Castle, given the epidemic and maybe not getting enough money flowing in. They had to do something to put their name on the map, and this does it. It definitely gets you thinking, what the hell is Coral Castle? Do I need to go see Coral Castle? And does it look like Coral Castle from Fortnite? Let me see with my own eyes. So I don't see this being a lawsuit that's going to favor Coral Castle. I think it's a waste of money in the long term, but I guess no news is bad news in that sense of the word. So Danica, I'll turf off to you first. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is definitely kind of a publicity stunt. There's not like a lot of the articles that I saw that were talking about this pointed to the similarities of, walls and like half-built castles and all these beach motifs and the name. I can't see this much more than anything other than a publicity stunt. I don't really think there's much to the case here, because anyone can build a castle on a shore and have all sorts of beach motifs. Are they going to sue, Disney for The Little Mermaid in, the castle with all the beach motifs in it? I don't think so. It just seems like they're kind of capitalizing on Fortnite's popularity, but that's just kind of me.
Well, that, and you got Epic on the ground right now, and a lot of people are saying, well, Epic's the little guy in this with the whole battle with Apple. So it's like, well, we're Coral Castle, we're going to come in and kick Epic in the ankle and hope we get something out of it. Like that's kind of where I would see this going in the long run. It's not a battle that Coral Castle is going to win. I mean, you got what, $18.5 billion company, or 16 billion, whatever it is, in Epic, probably has tons and tons of lawyers on their team. And here's Coral Castle's little, drive-by sightseeing location in the middle of Florida. I don't see it happening at all. Anything else on that? I think Mr. Green will be back in a moment. Oh, there he is. Mr. Green, what are your thoughts on Coral Castle and their lawsuit towards Epic?
I think it's a publicity stunt for sure. Especially since, as you said, with the pandemic and everything happening right now, not a lot of places like touristy sightseeing places have been getting a lot of business. So, I mean, it's a pretty good way to get publicity for sure.
Yeah, I guess even if you don't open after the pandemic's done, it's like, all right, cool. Let's go to Coral Castle. Let's go check it out.
Now, it'd be interesting to see if they actually have grounds for it.
Yeah, and I mean, that article by ABG Gaming does state that there was a big lawsuit a long time ago with like Lindsay Lohan or something, and that just the outcome of that, at least, I wouldn't say bodes well for Coral Castle, but gives them a glimmer of hope that something's going to happen. What I'm really hoping for is that a year from now, 12-year-olds go to Coral Castle with axes in their hand trying to make wood.
Coral Castle just no longer exists because everyone just came in with pickaxes trying to gather resources.
Yeah, you're just gonna see Coral Castles now, just a bunch of pallets kind of laid out.
They built something new.
Something new, a new castle made of wood and love.
Just,
do you guys play Fortnite at all or no?
I touched it a little bit when I first started picking up Steam, and I haven't really touched it since.
I've played it a few times. I absolutely hate it.
Okay, good. You guys can still stay on the podcast. All right. So the next article we're going to talk about, and Mr. Green, I'll turf this over to you first. So the Xbox Series S is reportedly 3.9 teraflops. So to give folks just a little bit of background before we jump into you here, what is a teraflop? Well, flops measure equations involving floating point numbers that a processor can solve in 1 second. So theoretically, the more flops you have, the better graphics and the faster your devices are. Based on that, when you look at the overall teraflops that a PS4 Pro has, it's at like 4.1 teraflops. So this is reportedly weaker than the PS4 Pro currently. Mr. Green, I know you're probably a little more savvy on the computer tech side of things. So let me hear your thoughts on that and that report.
Now, what I'm thinking is that this is like a smaller version.
It
of
is,
the
yeah.
Xbox. Yeah. Which, I mean, it would be like a lower grade beginner PC. I know that they were reporting for the full size Series S. It's going to be like 12 or 14 teraflops.
It's 12 teraflops on that one.
On the base model, yeah. So, I mean, if you're planning on playing games how you've been playing now, then I don't think it would be that much of a difference. When you need like heavy processing power, that would be more for like if you want to play 4K at 60 frames per second. But if you're just like wanting to play, your normal Fortnite at 1080p, at 60 frames, that in itself would be perfectly fine. I think it's more geared to the people who don't want to spend as much money on like a brand new full size one. And for the people who aren't necessarily going to need all that graphics power, like if someone who's not able to buy like a brand new 4K 55-inch TV or even like a monitor, because even monitors at like a 24-inch 4K monitor is over $400. So I think it will really affect like the budget end. And it'll be actually interesting to see if PlayStation responds with something like that. Because if they don't, I mean, that would definitely put in favor for Xbox when they're buying the new system.
Yeah, that was a thought of mine as well. When you bring that up with PlayStation's answer to it. So the PlayStation 5 is going to have, a disc-less version, really, but it's going to maintain the same power as a standard PS5. So from a price point comparison, the PS5, no matter what, is going to be priced higher than that, really condensed version, I guess you could say, in the Xbox Series S. Danica, your thoughts on it?
I don't really have a ton of thoughts on it. I struggle with the teraflops as a measurement and like contextualizing that and stuff. I haven't looked at consoles probably in the 4 or 5 years at all. So yeah, I have no real bearing or comment really to leave on this.
Gotcha. I'm trying to pull up the so somebody posted up. It was at Tom Warren. He put up the overall specs. So right now what it's showing is the Xbox Series S, 4 teraflops, 10 gigabyte DDR6 RAM. We're looking at 1440p, 60 frames per second, no disk drive. And let's see if there's anything else. And then plays all Xbox One games, supports 360, OG Xbox games, and next-gen support. Now, here's where it's interesting, though, is when you look at the Xbox Series X, 12.15 teraflops. We're looking at 4K and 60 frames per second with 8K gaming. And then it also shows on here, which is really interesting when you kind of read the fine print, plays all Xbox One games, supports Xbox 360, OG Xbox games, Xbox Series X exclusives. So when you think about that, the backwards compatibility component with Xbox Series S, what does that mean when it says next-gen support, but then the other part says Xbox Series X exclusives? Are not all Series X exclusives going to be playable on this Series S? That's kind of where my mind goes on that. So you've got this like slimmed down version. Let's just say it hits the market at $200. I honestly think in that case, Microsoft is kind of preying on those that don't know any better and are thinking, cool, I got the new Xbox, but then they find out 2 years from now, oh, by the way, your Series S isn't going to be able to play this game. Like, it just has support for some next-gen games. That's kind of where my mind goes on that. You guys think that might be the case, or is that just overthinking it?
I think it could happen.
Wouldn't put it past you.
I wouldn't put it past them. Like, oh, you got the cheaper version, but you probably should have got the more expensive version if you wanted to play all the Series X games, like Halo 7.
What are they on Halo? They keep switching names on me.
I think this is the.
Is this 7?
The 6th? I think this is the 6th one.
I don't know, man. With
Pretty sure
ODST and Reach and whatever.
Oh,
else
yeah,
they
those
have.
are like offline, like not from the main
I gotcha.
storyline. So like Halo 5 was like, I think it was the last one with Master Chief, and then Spartan Locke, I think. So
I got to get back into those. So I just picked up a 360 not too long ago, which shows where I'm at with Xbox and how much I care about it. And I got to get back into playing the Halo games. That's something I want to definitely get back into.
Halo 3 was the best Halo game. You can at me on Twitter. I don't care. Halo 3 was the best one.
No, man, I agree with you. So add us both. Halo 3 was a ton of fun. I enjoyed the multiplayer on that a lot more than any other game. And yeah, I mean, it kind of, for me, it really stopped it there. I haven't played a Halo since Halo 3. Outside of, some multiplayer and watching other people play it, I haven't really like dove into it and played a full-blown story. Danica, any thoughts on, Microsoft and maybe their motives down the road of screwing people over with these non-exclusives?
I think the main goal for Microsoft is to get people in the walled garden, and specifically for their streaming service that we know, the Xbox Game Cloud, that's coming down the path. I think that the support for this half support for exclusives is going to come down to, well, if you really want to play it, you can stream it from the Xbox Game Cloud if you have the Series S instead of the Series X.
And we'll support it, but it's not going to be at that 4K that you really want. It's going to be limited. So you want the full experience, you got to come home to the bigger console.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I really do think Microsoft's goal for this generation, and probably for the future, is to get people on the X Cloud gaming service, this stream service. Go ahead. That
and general adoption of their console. I mean, they got completely destroyed this past generation between Nintendo and Sony, and they gotta pick it up. So obviously, we've seen a lot of acquisitions of smaller studios and even larger studios like Obsidian, and what is it, Team Ninja as well. So really, or Ninja Theory, I think. So really, at this point, they're going all in. I think, and I told Brian a while back, if Microsoft does not succeed this console generation, this will be the last Xbox. I cannot see them continuing on with a console that's not producing like they want it to produce.
Do you think at that point they're just going to continue really promoting the game streaming software and then also trying to sell PC more?
Yep, I would think that that's going to be their bread and butter down the road. I just cannot see them saying, hey, look, we sold another 40 million consoles, but Sony's sitting here at 120 million, year in and year out. We're getting blown out by Nintendo every year as well. And, the amount of money they're putting in to develop these things, the marketing, the time and effort that it takes, I just cannot see Microsoft continuing on with a hardware and pushing down the market versus, like you said, the streaming service, focusing on the games, really getting people towards PC. Because if you think, hey, I want to do xCloud, well, I need to buy a PC or a Mac, obviously. But say I buy a PC, well, how am I going to run that? I need to have the Microsoft OS, to go on that, unless I'm running Linux or something. So, I mean, there's upsell too, right? So you're going to have other things that they can sell you within that PC down the road that aren't even game related. So at the end of the day, it's kind of this like cohesive, revenue stream for them. Just say, we're going to do it all on PC. And they can even have like PCs that go into market that are optimized specifically for, games. I mean, hey, you can do everything else you want, but you've also got this PC. It doesn't have to be called Xbox. It could be just a PC line that they have.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about it on our show before, but like, if Microsoft wants to hire me so I could like give them the idea to make a modular Xbox to where you can swap out parts from it, that would make them a killing.
Well, I may or may not have Microsoft connections.
Hey. So, yeah, because the Nux have been making headway this past trade shows, like earlier or later last year. They had like the Razer Tomahawk, I think, where it was all modular NUCs. And I was saying before they really like showed that off, that's what the console should do, because they could extend the life of one console. They don't have to keep redesigning every 5 to 10 years. All they'd have to do is get better parts in those NUCs and like sell them individually, and then people can buy those like even yearly. Like GPU advancements happen every year, so if they did that every year and sold like a GPU, a NUC GPU, it's fully modular, they just slide out of their Xbox and put a new one in, they would make a killing on hardware.
Oh, for sure, man. Like, and that's so consumer friendly at that point as well. I mean, it doesn't take a lot of technical savvy to sit back and say, I'm going to slide this out of my Xbox and pop in a new version of that same part. Like, it's
just press a button and pull out. Yeah,
that's what she said. Okay. Okay, so let's go into our next article here. Mobile versus PC versus console gaming, which is best? So I'm going to open this up on my end, but this is really a great article. It details the pros and cons of each format of gaming, and we'll get into it in a bit with our inflation deflation. But for me personally, I've always preferred console gaming. It's just the way I have it set up. Like right now, I've got a computer in my room or my game area and a couple monitors, but I work here all the time. So having to sit here and play games just doesn't appeal to me versus going out on my couch or going into a guest bedroom and sitting back and playing a game there while laying down. And then before we move on to, I didn't call out the authors of all those articles before. So our first one, Epic Games being sued by Coral Castle, is Ollie S. of Any Button Gaming. The Xbox Series S article is by Lewis White of Microsoft Power User. And then this one is Tony Brown of GameSpace. So Danica K, we'll turf this one off to you first. Console versus mobile versus PC. Which one do you think is better and why?
So for myself personally, I'm a PC player mainly. I started getting into PC gaming right after high school because I needed a computer to do all sorts of high intensity schoolwork. I majored in media production, so I needed something to do video production and audio and all that stuff. So I needed a PC that could handle that, and it just kind of also became a gaming rig as well. Other than that, like I do a lot of gaming on the phone as well. A lot of time wasters, a lot of time killers. I also find phone gaming for like card games and some other, like RPGs and stuff to be very enjoyable as well. But overall for me, mostly PC and then some on my phone.
And Mr. Green, where are you at on this whole battle?
Personally, I'm a PC player, especially with attempting eventually in the future to be full-time streaming. So I built a PC about, I want to say it's been over a year now, year and a half. I used to be playing mainly on PS4. And then when I actually got into streaming on Twitch, I was using a computer to stream my PlayStation 4 gameplay. But then I'm like, I'm just going to make the switch to PC and go full-time PC player. I still have love for console. I respect mobile players, like especially with like the new streaming services that are coming out, like NVIDIA GeForce, where you can play PC games on your phone. But for me, it's PC.
Nice. And so, in this article, Tony Brown actually calls out for mobile gaming some of the benefits, right? So I'll jot those down and we can talk about those a little bit. So mobile gaming benefits, obviously it's portable, it's accessible, very cheap games, some of them being free with obviously buy-ins on the game itself. And then a diverse range of game types. So, I mean, you've got RPGs, card games, like Danica K said, but you've also got stuff like Candy Crush and visual storytelling games and strategy games. Anything you can think of is generally going to be on a mobile game. For PC, the benefits are obviously highest available performance, which nobody can deny that. Cheaper games than console, 100%. When you're on Steam and you got that summer sale, there's no beating it at that point outside of maybe mobile gaming. And then customizable and upgradable. Of course, and then multiple uses, as Danny K said. So you got word processing and video editing on there. We're obviously running a podcast off of one, so it's got a lot of benefits. And then console gaming, being the last one here, it's very accessible, easy to get your hands on, simple to use, relatively cheap to get started, pending what you're getting. Next gen, probably not so much if those reports of $600 are true. And then requires very little technical know-how and console exclusive games. The only thing I would ping on that, though, with console exclusive games is I'm fairly certain over the years I have seen PC exclusive games, not necessarily called out as exclusive, but the fact that they don't hit consoles. So in my mind, there's a lot of exclusives on the PC in that way. Do you guys have any thoughts on those points or those benefits that were mentioned? Anything that really called out to you that you would kind of peg as wrong or definitely 100% right, Danica?
The idea of console exclusives, I don't know if those are necessarily a good thing, because consoles is an umbrella, right? That includes the Nintendo Switch, that includes Xbox One, that includes PS4, it includes whatever's coming up next in the family of those companies. So, I mean, if you get into, like, if you buy a PlayStation 4 or the upcoming PlayStation 5, you're not going to be able to play the Switch exclusives. So I don't know if like console exclusives are necessarily a pro or a benefit to console gaming. I do agree with all the other aspects of, they're very simple. They are relatively cheap and they come with a lot of good bundles. And they require very little technical know-how. You just need to, run an HDMI cable into HDMI port 1 of your TV from the box and also make sure the power is plugged in and you're good. It's not like you have to build the PC itself and then make sure that you have all of the USBs for all your keyboards and mice connected. And, if you have external sound card or whatever else, it doesn't require all that. It just requires plugging in a couple cables.
Yeah, good points, man. Mr. Green, anything on that? Any of those points or benefits that you would disagree with?
I'm going to bounce off Danny and say that, well, technically you could if you bought a budget PC or like a built PC already, pre-built, from like a DIY PC or iBuyPower or something like that. So there, you don't necessarily have to build a PC. I think it's better to build your own PC, but there are a lot of companies out there that will build those PCs for you and have it ready to go.
So that's actually something I'm looking to do down the road, because I want to get my current setup set up not only for podcasting and video editing and such down the road, as we have some different plans we want to do, but also gaming, because there are a lot of games on PC I'd want to give a shot to, especially with the Xbox or the Series X Cloud. Or xCloud, really, that's coming out. I want to be able to play some of his Xbox games, but I don't want to put towards the money to get an Xbox console as well as a PC. So there's websites out there, from what I understand, you just saying that I can give them every part that I want. They'll build it out, assuming for a convenience fee, and then send it out.
Yeah, like I know Zydac is a good one, as well as NZXT. If I had to recommend one, it'd be NZXT, hashtag not sponsored. Just because they actually build the parts, like they take the parts, build it for you, whereas like iBuyPower and the cheaper budget pre-built ones, they have like a certain series that they put together, and they generally try to save money on certain parts to so they can get that profit margin, versus like NZXT or Zydac that actually piece the parts together and they charge you like a building fee and stuff like that.
Gotcha. Pretty affordable on NZXT?
It's relatively. It'd be, a few $100s more than what you would do if you built the PC on your own. Gotcha.
But in that case, you kind of get rid of the frustration if you haven't built a PC before, and obviously it's been built correctly. And I assume, is there any sort of warranty that they do on those PCs?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. My friend Hi, I'm Biggs, that's how he did his build. He went through NCXT.
I'm gonna look into that, man. That's a good rec. So, like I said, I've been looking to
Origin PC is another one as well.
Origin PC. Okay, cool.
They do custom PCs, like custom, like custom cases, different colors and stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah, I do want to. I mean, it's not like I don't have the technical savvy to put one together. It's more or less the time needed and the fact that there's so many other projects I have going on right now in my day-to-day life. That's like, the last thing I need to do is sit back and piece together a PC at this point. It's just not going to be worth my time. So pay somebody else to do it. Okay. So assuming we don't have any additional thoughts, this week's Inflation Deflation Challenge, we played Doom. So it's the original Doom, released in 1993, but this week I wanted to focus more on the Super Nintendo version that was released in 1995. So this game was developed by Sculpture Software Incorporated, published by Williams Entertainment, and then the program was not using the Doom engine, but using Randy Linden's version of the Reality engine. The game is a shooter, and of course, great reception over the years. Still praised today for the technical prowess that it had back in '93, and of course, it's spawned off tons of different Doom games over the years. So, Mr. Green, how did you end up playing Doom this week?
Well, at first I tried to find it on my phone. Like, I didn't dig super hard on my phone. I originally tried like the App Store, and then I was trying to look for some APKs, and then I got fed up with it. I did download like it's called like Free Doom on the App Store, but it was god awful. So I eventually went to my PC, and I did the Super Nintendo emulator, and I downloaded the Doom. I can't remember what website it was from, but it was kind of tricky getting it on my PC or trying to play it in general, especially when I tried to do it on my phone first. But
so you did the whole mouse and keyboard though setup,
yeah,
to be able to play. Okay, so you kind of played the Super Nintendo version, but in the old PC style.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's interesting. What did you think overall in terms of this being a game from 27 years ago?
Oh, I love Doom. I was I played Doom all the time when I was a kid, like especially on it was the PC version when my cousin had like this super old, like back in the day, like 98 Windows 98 PC, just like Doom and Duke Nukem. So, like, I love the game. The game is fantastic. Like, I'm not much for like horror games in general, but it's so pixelated that it's like, is it really horror?
No.
Yeah, exactly.
I would have never thought that.
Things.
Yeah. And then think you're getting injured whenever you pick up an item or something.
Yeah. It was
every time you pick up a clue, he's like, like you didn't get hit, you just picked something up. Like why does the screen flash whenever you do something?
Yeah, and then like you see an enemy and you're like, what the hell is that supposed to be? Like
it's growling, so shoot it.
Yeah, are those teeth? Like, what is going on here? What are you?
So
you look like a block.
Danica, we obviously played very low resolution versions of this game. Was the iOS version at least upgraded in some capacity?
Not a ton. It's actually I'm pulling it up real quick just so I can kind of look at it and describe what I'm seeing. It's fairly, it's actually pretty true to style. Because the original's in a 4x3, they just kind of put that, like, shrink that in. And then on the sides, you have just like blank space that they allow you to like run your controls in. But it stays pretty true art style wise. It's not very different. I will say it's actually really floaty though. Like the controls are very floaty from what I'm assuming you guys probably experienced.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I played it on Super Nintendo, so on an actual console, and yeah, I mean, it was definitely a little floaty for me. Overall, I would echo Mr. Green's point as well. With the game itself really just being super pixelated, it hasn't aged well at all. There are some Super Nintendo games that I still play, but I'm like, all right, cool, like this looks good. I could sit back, I could play this all the way through. I got through maybe 5 or 6 levels of Doom last time. Like, I'm getting a headache. Like, I gotta stop. I can't keep doing this. So yeah, I mean, the music in the game is fantastic. Like, I could listen to that soundtrack all day long and enjoy it. Like that was one of my key things that I took away from that. And then the gameplay itself wasn't terrible. I have to consider that it's 27 years old and on a cartridge. And while I was playing it on, I guess a tube TV technically, I forget the technical terms on that. It's on a flat screen. So graphically, it wasn't terrible for me as much as it could have been if I had it stretched on like a 1080p or 4K. But overall, it was Doom. It was interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's get into some of the nuts and bolts on this one, man. So for a Super Nintendo version of this game, you're looking at, if you want to get this thing complete in box, $85.99 complete in box, and that is currently at its peak, and it is trending up, so that's kind of scary. And then loose, $31.65. It is also currently at its peak, and it's also trending up. No idea why, outside of the COVID effect on games, that this would be trending up. Seeing as there are so many ways to play this game via PC, other consoles. Game Boy Advance has a version as well, 3DO, Sega Saturn, I believe. So it's all over the place. And so when we look at the most expensive version, you're looking at a complete in box Super Famicom version sitting at $107.51. So obviously it's the Japanese version. And then you've got the cheapest version being PAL Sega Saturn at $13.93. And a Super Famicom, sorry. Yeah, I believe that was a Japanese. I'd have to refer back to price charting on that. So with those prices, we'll go based off the $31.65 that's noted there. Do you guys think this game, 27 years old, tons of ways to play it, is $31.65 an inflated price for this game? So Danny K, we'll start with you on that one.
Well, yeah, so I paid $5 for the iOS port. You're talking about all the ways to play it. There's actually like a community of people who try to get Doom to play on everything, right? You can get it on a TI-85, which is a calculator. You can get it on, I've seen people hack Doom onto, what was that MacBook that had the like 5 by like 32 little touchpad right above the keyboard? I saw people hack it onto those and actually play it like on a little touchpad. I've seen people hack it onto their company printers with the LCD screens. Like, there's just so many ways people can play this game. The 3165, I kind of feels a little inflated, but probably not by much. I can imagine if it's an original cartridge, I'd probably be willing to pay about $20 for it. So an inflation of 1160 or 1165 isn't probably terrible for something that's loose like that.
Mr. Green, where are you at on that?
I definitely would say that it's inflated, especially since I played the game for free $99. Yeah, so yeah, from my standpoint, yeah, it would be inflated for me. Now, when it comes to like collectors, especially since like the new Doom Eternal came out, I'm sure it sparked a lot of people who were like, oh, I want to try out the old games and, you know, get the original stuff. I can see how that price increased from that. But I don't think it's worth it on my end because I didn't spend any money on it.
So when I first kind of brought this game up, my thought was like, oh, Doom's like 10 or 15 bucks. Like, that's where my mind was, because having worked in a game store years ago, we would sell Doom for like 15 bucks. So not to say like I'm out of touch, and it just didn't occur to me like this game could have gone so high up in price. In my mind, it was like, it's Doom. Like, why would it go up in price so high? Because it's available everywhere. So why would you want to pay that much money for a cartridge version? So when I saw 3165, I was like, that is way too much. I mean, I'm looking at like 15 to 20 bucks is the max I would pay on a game like that, and that's even pushing it for me just because it's so widely available and easy to find. Like, that's same thought as you guys. So all right, so let's think overall. So we've got some great music in the game. Obviously it's super pixelated. The game is super easy to find, easily accessible on a majority of consoles out there, and even older consoles, as well as PC in current times, and available for free $99 if you go Mr. Green's way. And yeah, so I think we're all kind of in agreement. This game is inflated at its current price on the Super Nintendo. Not to say it's inflated on mobile or, you know, the calculator or anything like that, but Super Nintendo version, we're going to go ahead and say is inflated.
I'm going to have to make a little mark there. Piracy is bad. Don't pirate stuff.
Yeah, don't do it.
Yeah, support the devs, guys.
Yeah, and we do. is sometimes you just don't want to pay $700 for a, Flintstones Dinosaur Peak, like, or Little Samson, or Stadium Events $20,000, whatever price it's going for.
Guys, don't kill me. I was doing it for research.
Research purposes always. No,
science.
in all honesty, like I oftentimes, even if we play a game via emulator, which I did not download myself, I was given it. I always try to get the Super Nintendo game if I can afford it. This is the key thing. So we did, what was it? Super R-Type recently, actually, on a previous episode. And we're in the middle of talking, and I go to Ryan, I'm like, okay, I just had a recent pickup of Super R-Type. Like, I literally was just on eBay buying it right on the spot. So anytime I can get it. All right, guys. Well, thanks again for being on episode 94 of Game Deflators Podcast. If you want to give a quick shout out to where folks can find you.
Yeah, so again, Next to Nothing, the podcast is live on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/DaniEcae, DANIECAE, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can also find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and everywhere podcasts are found.
So you can find us on thegamedeflators.com. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, Podcast Addict, and anywhere podcasts are found, as well as Instagram and Facebook at The Game Deflators and Twitter at Game Deflators. As always, thanks again for coming on. Next week, we'll have Ryan back on board as he's out of town, and we'll figure out what our next inflation deflation is. This has been episode 94 of the Game Deflators Podcast. My name's John, and I've been joined by the Next to Nothing podcast, DaniEcae and Mr. Green Elite, and thanks for listening.